Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. So, when we started our discussion on population dynamics, we talked really about the fact that populations are defined really by three major factors: their population size, their population growth, and today we're going to talk about their population dispersion. And when we talk about population dispersion, we're really describing just what's the relative spacing between individuals within that population. And we tend to see that they fall into one of three particular patterns. This idea of a clumped pattern, which is what you're seeing up here and illustrated by the school of fish, more of an even or uniform population dispersion like the birds here, or something that's just kind of more random. And there doesn't really seem to be any particular pattern that we can discern from something like our cute little sloth there. So when we look at clumped patterns, these seem to be the most common types of patterns we see in populations. And we tend to find individuals within patches. And those patches often are formed around resource availability as well as behavior. So, schooling of fish, right? They will pull together in those schools as a means of protection from predators, a means of getting resources from their own prey, so on and so forth. We look at wolves, are another great example. Any animal that hunts in a pack, they get some general collective protection for sort of the weaker and younger of that pack by working together, and then are much more agile at attacking their prey in a group, right? Even humans are going to be found in clumped patterns. We clump together as family units. We clump together in larger populations around things like cities. Well, where are a lot of the cities? They're around ports. And if you go back to the historical context, being able to ship and move materials from one place to another is much easier across waterways. So coming in from across the ocean, you end up where you can kind of dock your boat. So we see a lot of key features of populations in these clumped patterns. And it really does come from where those resources are available. Talk about the middle of a savanna, and you're going to see a lot of clumped behavior around things like watering holes and shelter locations and things like that. A uniform or more spread out type of population dispersion, something like our birds here, where they're much more evenly spaced, relatively speaking, is often a result of territorial behavior. So when we look at the spacing between organisms like this, you will see that it often is related to a certain amount of territory that they sort of claim and define, often for mating behaviors. So certain bird boxes, for example, if you're into um, building those and distributing those, things like bluebird boxes, when you have to hang them, they have to be a certain amount of feet apart, or you're not going to ever be able to establish nests in both boxes because the birds just have a certain territory that they will defend, and they're not generally going to allow other males into a nest too close to theirs. They're going to protect that. Um, and so you see a lot of this even spacing with territorial behaviors in organisms. And then we get the random spacing. And this is just unpredictable spacing. We can't seem to, as humans, looking at this, discern any particular pattern to it. And it's probably a result of one or two things. Either one, we just don't understand what we're looking at as humans and haven't figured it out yet, or two, there just doesn't really seem to be any strong attractions or repulsions for those organisms, either in the resources that are available to them or the behaviors that they participate in that force them into any particular defined pattern. They're just kind of land where they land, and that's where they happen to reside and live out their days and fulfill their role within their ecosystem. So if we sort of just look at this from a sort of very simplistic diagram, this is what we're talking about. So you get that clumped behavior because they're um, family units, or they're hunting in packs, or they're circling around certain resources, watering holes, so on and so forth. So you get that clumped pattern. this more even or uniform pattern because they probably are defending some sort of territory, and so are spreading themselves out to have just enough territory for them to be satisfied to obtaining the resources and participating in that territorial behavior to satisfy their needs. Or you get that random pattern at the bottom where we just can't seem to land on any particular obvious distribution, and it's probably just a result of the way that they happen to obtain their resources or the behaviors that they participate in just don't force any particular pattern in any real understanding. And just some examples along with that. So we often see clumped in things like schools of fish. The uniform patterns happen to happen a lot, or at least a lot of the examples I've come across happen to be in bird species. They defend a certain point of their territory for their nesting behaviors. And then random, something like plants. Well, your seed lands wherever it lands, and hopefully there's enough resources and not enough competition to outcompete you that your seed germinates, it grows, and